So in this video, we're going to go into a deep dive on the FX cartridge, explain how it works, explain to you some troubleshooting techniques on how to identify when the cartridge needs to be replaced, and some techniques that how you can prolong the life of your cartridge. So first thing we're going to do is kind of explain to you by showing you a cutaway of what the internal features of this cartridge are. As you can see, there's a dual needle design, one for the A side, one for the B side, and that needle moves forward and backwards when triggering, and that allows the timing of both your chemicals, A and B, and your air purge, and if you're using clear shot, the clear shot fluid. So Chris, why don't you walk us through kind of how do you remove the cartridge?
Sure.
And the best method to do that.
Sure. All right, we'll start. Let's remove our air cap and mixed chamber assembly. Put that aside. Take our hose manifold off. Put that aside as well. Now taking off your cartridge is really simple, just as simple. Hit the quarter turn and it pops right off.
And putting a new cartridge on is just that simple?
Just as simple.
You line up those tabs with the cutouts on the body.
Exactly. Turn it into place. It just goes right back on. Yep. It can only go on one way. You can't get it on any other way.
So when you're doing that, what it's actually doing is locking the needles to the air piston?
That yoke to the air piston, and then that can move together with the air piston.
And the yoke ties together the two needles?
Yep, it ties together those two needles that you see there onto that yoke. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Obviously, that's the main repair part of this gun.
It is.
You know, it makes it simple to repair. All you have to do is throw a new cartridge on there. Right. But customers are going to want to know when to replace that. What's their indicators that that's the case?
Sure. There are a couple. So typically, some of you are familiar with our legacy guns, the air purge of the PC. You'll see missing out the front if there's a scratch or score on your mixed chamber. This is very similar in that nature. If a seal does start to show signs of wear, you can see missing out the front on that.
When you're not triggering?
Yeah, when you're not triggering, yes. And then also there's a rear seal here, and we put a series of weep ports. As you can see, there's weep ports here and then here. If those rear seals in this cartridge start to fail, you'll see material coming out of that. So that's a telltale sign that seal is going bad when you start sealing leakage.
So when you see leakage out of those weep ports, it's pretty important for the contractor to know it's time to change the cartridge. Because if you ignore it, it'll continue to run, but then you risk material backing up into the air section.
You do.
So those weep ports are designed as your early warning sign that the seals are starting to wear and it's time to replace the cartridge.
Yep. We also included another, we'll call it a weep port here. So this is for your mixed chamber. If I can show you that blue seal, the mixed chamber here, that's either damaged, or if this isn't tightened fully, if it's not seated, you'll start to see foam material come out of that weep port right there, and that's an indicator that either that seal is bad or you did not tighten your mixed chamber adequately.
So this really what we're doing is we're using this seal to seal at the base of that cartridge.
We are.
To prevent A and B materials from talking to each other behind the chamber.
Correct.
So if you do not properly tighten your air cap to get that seal, the proper crush against the rear of that cartridge, you could have a little leakage, and that's what that weep hole is for?
It is. Yes, it is.
So if contractors make a mistake, don't properly tighten it, they see a little foam coming out of that weep hole, what do you recommend they do at that point?
At that point, clean out as much as you can, foam in there. We have a tool that you can go in, clean all that material out of there. You can grab it. It matches the profile of the exit bore of that mixed chamber. We don't want you going in with any metal tools, picks to scratch that surface because that could damage that sealing surface. So this says, call it flutes on it to go and clean out any material in there. Use it almost like a pin vise drill, clean any residual out of there. Get that bore as clean as you can.
How about any residual in the weep hole? Can they spray that with a little brake cleaner or some other cleaner?
Solvent and brake cleaner is very common. The contractors use any solvent in there to go and clean that out.
So you don't have to dispose of the cartridge if they don't properly seal the mixed chamber. If they act
not at all, clean up
pretty quick and take care of it when it happens, then it's perfectly savable.
It is. If your impingement port, sometimes there's a blockage. Maybe you had a slight crossover. Sometimes that A side gets some buildup on the impingement port side of this. This is a multi-purpose tool. What we call this is our port check portion, that 90 degree. portion of this tool, if you go in there and engage that bore, that tool, that port should go all the way in, and then you know that there's no restriction. You don't have any buildup. So this is a really nice, quick troubleshooting tool to verify that that engages all the way in and that you are restriction free.
And if they feel like it's a little restricted, they can throw that whole cartridge in a bucket of solvent.
You can, you
and
can
try to loosen that restriction, and then come back an hour or a couple hours later and use that tool again
Yes.
and see if they can free that restriction.
Right. Yep. You can go in there and soak that, do that. Right.
And everything on the cartridge, as far as seals and O-rings, are designed to be soaked in solvents?
Yep. You can submerge this entire cartridge in solvent.
Perfect. So it sounds like we're really trying to let the end user maximize the life out of this.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's it for this video. On the next video, we're going to go into details on the trigger and the gun body.